Marcus Williams wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked quickly between the tables. His white shirt was damp and his feet hurt from standing all day. He carried 3 plates on one arm and 2 on the other. The dinner rush at Romano's Italian restaurant was always busy, but tonight felt extra crazy. He set the plates down at table 6 with a smile. "Here you go, folks. The chicken special and the seafood pasta. Can I get you anything else?" The customers thanked him, and Marcus hurried back to the kitchen. As he walked, he did math in his head. Tips tonight were okay so far. Maybe $60 if he was lucky. He needed at least $50 to buy Emma's medicine tomorrow. Emma was his 8-year-old daughter. She had asthma, which meant she had trouble breathing sometimes. The medicine helped her breathe better, but it cost a lot of money. Marcus worried about money every single day. He picked up more plates from the kitchen window. Tony, the cook, gave him a nod. "Table 12 wants extra bread," Tony said. "Got it," Marcus replied. He grabbed a basket of warm bread and headed to the dining room. Marcus had worked at Romano's for 5 years. It was a fancy restaurant in the downtown area. Rich people came here for business dinners and special occasions. The food was expensive, which meant good tips for the waiters. But even with good tips, Marcus barely had enough money each month. 2 years ago, his wife Sarah left them. She said she couldn't handle being a mother anymore. She wanted to find herself and move to California. Marcus never heard from her again. Since then, it was just him and Emma. Being a single dad was the hardest thing Marcus had ever done. He worked double shifts most days. He started work at 11 in the morning and finished at midnight. Sometimes he worked weekends too. Emma stayed with Mrs. Chen, their neighbor, after school. Mrs. Chen was an old Chinese lady who lived next door with her son David. David was 30 but had special needs and couldn't take care of himself. Mrs. Chen was kind to Emma. She gave her snacks and helped with homework. Marcus paid her what he could, but Mrs. Chen never asked for much money. She said Emma reminded her of her own granddaughter who lived far away. Marcus delivered the bread to table 12 and checked on his other tables. The night was going well. No angry customers or big problems. He hoped it would stay that way. At 9 o'clock, Marcus got a short break. He went outside behind the restaurant and called Emma. "Hi, Daddy." Emma's voice made him smile. She always sounded happy to hear from him. "Hi, sweetheart, how was school today?" "Good. We learned about butterflies in science class. Did you know some butterflies can fly really far? Like hundreds of miles." Marcus laughed. "That's amazing. Are you being good for Mrs. Chen?" "Yes, Daddy. We made dumplings for dinner. Mrs. Chen showed me how to fold them. I'm getting better at it." "That's wonderful, honey. I'll be home around 12:30 tonight. You need to go to bed at 9, okay?" "I know, Daddy. Mrs. Chen already told me. Will you check on me when you get home?" "Of course, baby. I always do. I love you." "I love you too, Daddy. Make lots of tips tonight." Marcus smiled as he hung up the phone. Emma always told him to make lots of tips. She was smart for her age and understood that more tips meant they could buy things they needed. He went back inside and worked until closing time. The last customers left at 11:30. Marcus helped clean tables and count the money from his tips. Tonight was good. $72. That was enough for Emma's medicine and maybe some groceries too. Marcus drove home in his old Honda. The car was 12 years old and had many problems. The air conditioning didn't work, and sometimes it made strange noises. But it still ran, and Marcus was grateful for that. He lived in a small apartment building in an older part of the city. The building wasn't fancy, but it was clean and safe. The rent was $800 a month, which was cheap for the city but still hard for Marcus to pay. He parked his car and walked up to the second floor. His apartment was number 2B. He opened the door quietly and turned on a small lamp. The apartment had 2 bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, and 1 bathroom. The furniture was old but comfortable. Marcus checked on Emma first, like he did every night. She was sleeping peacefully in her bed. Her inhaler was on the nightstand next to her. Marcus made sure it was there and working. The doctor said Emma should always have her inhaler close by. Emma's room had drawings on the walls. She loved to draw pictures of flowers, animals, and the 2 of them together. Marcus looked at a new picture she had made. It showed him in his work uniform with a big smile. At the bottom, she had written, "My hero, Daddy," in purple crayon. Marcus felt tears in his eyes. Emma was everything to him. She was the reason he worked so hard. She never complained about their small apartment or their old car. She never asked for expensive toys or clothes. She was happy as long as they were together. He went to his own room and changed out of his work clothes. Tomorrow was Saturday, which meant he had to work lunch and dinner shifts. That was good because weekends brought more customers and better tips, but it also meant he wouldn't see Emma much. She would spend the day with Mrs. Chen again. Marcus set his alarm for 8 in the morning. He needed to make Emma breakfast before he left for work. He always made sure she had a good breakfast, even if it meant he didn't have time to eat. As he lay in bed, Marcus thought about their life. It wasn't easy, but they were managing. Emma was healthy most of the time. They had a roof over their heads and food to eat. Marcus had a steady job that paid decent money. Things could be worse. But Marcus also worried about the future. What if Emma got really sick? What if he lost his job? What if their rent went up? He tried not to think about these things too much, but sometimes the worry kept him awake at night. Marcus closed his eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow would be another long day, but he would face it like he faced every day. One step at a time, one table at a time, one tip at a time. For Emma, he would do anything. She was his world, and he was determined to give her the best life he could. Friday night at Romano's was always the busiest night of the week. Marcus arrived at work early to help set up the dining room. The restaurant looked perfect. White tablecloths, fresh flowers, and soft lighting made everything feel expensive and special. Marcus checked his section. He had 6 tables tonight, including table 12. Table 12 was special. It was in a private dining room at the back of the restaurant. Only important customers used that room. The manager, Mr. Peterson, told Marcus that a very rich businessman was coming tonight with some guests. "This is a big deal, Marcus," Mr. Peterson said. "The customer's name is Richard Blackstone. He owns lots of buildings in the city. He spends a lot of money here, so make sure everything is perfect." Marcus nodded. He knew how important big customers were to the restaurant. If they were happy, they would come back and spend more money. If they were unhappy, they might never come back. At 6 o'clock, the customers started arriving. Marcus took care of his regular tables first. A young couple celebrating their anniversary, a family with 2 small children, an older man eating alone while reading a book. Marcus made sure everyone had what they needed. At 7:30, Richard Blackstone arrived. Marcus watched him walk through the restaurant. Blackstone was a big man with gray hair and an expensive suit. He walked like he owned the place. 3 other men in suits followed him to the private dining room. Marcus brought them water and bread while they looked at the menu. He could hear them talking about business deals and lots of money. Blackstone had a loud voice and seemed to be the boss of the group. "Gentlemen," Blackstone said, "tonight we're going to make history. This development project will make us all very rich." The other men listened carefully. One of them, a thin man with glasses, looked nervous. Another man with a beard seemed excited. The third man, who was younger than the others, just nodded and took notes. Marcus brought them wine and took their dinner orders. Blackstone ordered the most expensive steak on the menu. The others ordered expensive dishes too. As Marcus walked back to the kitchen, he heard Blackstone talking about building something big. The restaurant got busier as the night went on. Marcus ran between his tables, making sure everyone was happy. He brought food, filled water glasses, and answered questions about the menu. His feet hurt, but he kept smiling. When he brought the appetizers to table 12, Marcus heard more of their conversation. Blackstone was showing the other men papers and drawings. The drawings looked like plans for a big building. "This area is perfect," Blackstone said, pointing at a map. "It's close to downtown, but the land is cheap because poor people live there now. We'll tear down those old apartments and build luxury condos." The man with glasses looked worried. "What about the families who live there now? Where will they go?" Blackstone laughed. "That's not our problem. We're businessmen, not social workers. Those people can find somewhere else to live. Marcus felt uncomfortable listening to this, but he couldn't help hearing it. The area on the map looked familiar. He thought it might be near where he lived, but he wasn't sure. He brought them their main courses and tried to focus on his other tables. But he kept hearing bits of their conversation. They were talking about making millions of dollars. They were talking about permits and inspections. They were talking about getting rid of undesirable people. The man with the beard asked, "Are you sure we can get all the permits we need? The city council has been difficult lately." Blackstone smiled. "Don't worry about the city council. I have friends there. I know how to make things happen. Money talks, if you know what I mean." The younger man looked up from his notes. "What about environmental concerns? I heard that area has some problems with flooding." "Flooding?" Blackstone waved his hand. "That's just paperwork. We'll get the right reports that say what we need them to say. Nobody checks those things carefully anyway." Marcus brought them dessert and coffee. As he set down the plates, he heard Blackstone talking about Mrs. Chen's neighborhood. He was sure now. They were talking about the area where Marcus lived, where Emma lived, where Mrs. Chen and her son David lived. The man with glasses was still asking questions. "I want to make sure this is all legal, Richard. I don't want any problems later." Blackstone leaned forward. "Listen, James. I've been doing this for 20 years. I know how to handle everything. The environmental reports will say whatever we need them to say. The safety inspections will pass, the permits will be approved, and we'll make $10 million each." Marcus almost dropped the coffee pot. $10 million each? That was more money than Marcus could imagine. But they were talking about destroying his neighborhood to get it. He went back to the kitchen and tried to focus on his other tables, but his mind was racing. These men were planning to tear down homes where real people lived. Families like his. Old people like Mrs. Chen. People who didn't have much money and couldn't fight back. When Marcus brought the check to table 12, he heard the final part of their conversation. Blackstone was showing them official-looking papers. "These are the environmental impact reports," Blackstone said. "As you can see, there are no problems with the land. No flooding risks. No soil contamination. No endangered species. Everything is clean and safe." The man with glasses read the papers carefully. "This says the development will actually help the environment. How is that possible?" Blackstone grinned. "We're going to plant trees in the parking lot. That counts as environmental improvement. The report writer is a friend of mine. He knows how to make things sound good." Marcus felt sick to his stomach. He lived in that neighborhood. He knew there were flooding problems every spring. He knew the old gas station on the corner had leaked chemicals into the ground years ago. He knew there were birds that nested in the trees behind the apartments. But these men were lying about all of it. They were going to tell people that tearing down homes was good for the environment. They were going to make millions of dollars by lying. The younger man was counting money on a calculator. "So we each invest $2 million and in 2 years we get back $12 million. "That's right," Blackstone said. "It's the easiest money you'll ever make. We tear down some cheap apartments, build expensive condos, and sell them to rich people who want to live close to downtown." Marcus finished serving his other tables and cleaned up the restaurant. But he couldn't stop thinking about what he had heard. These men were going to destroy his neighborhood. They were going to make Mrs. Chen and David homeless. They were going to lie to government officials. They were going to break laws. But what could Marcus do? He was just a waiter. These were rich, powerful men. If he said anything, they would just deny it. Worse, he might lose his job. And without his job, he couldn't take care of Emma. As the restaurant closed, Marcus watched the 4 men leave. They were shaking hands and smiling. They looked very happy about their plan to make millions of dollars. Marcus drove home slowly that night. He kept thinking about Mrs. Chen. She had lived in her apartment for 15 years. It was the only home David had ever known. Where would they go if these men tore down their building? He thought about all the other families in the neighborhood. People who worked hard but didn't make much money. People who couldn't afford to live in expensive places. People like him and Emma. Marcus parked his car and looked up at their apartment building. The lights were off in Mrs. Chen's window. She, and David were probably sleeping peacefully, not knowing that rich men were planning to take away their home. Marcus felt angry and helpless at the same time. He wanted to do something to stop Blackstone and his friends, but he didn't know what
he could do.
He was just one person against powerful men with lots of money. He went upstairs and checked on Emma. She was sleeping with her favorite stuffed animal, a small elephant named Peanut. She looked so peaceful and innocent. Marcus promised himself that he would find a way to protect her and their home, no matter what it took. Saturday morning came too early for Marcus. He had barely slept, thinking about what he heard at table 12. He made Emma pancakes for breakfast and tried to act normal. "Daddy, you look tired," Emma said as she ate her pancakes. "Are you okay?" Marcus forced a smile. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just worked late last night. What do you want to do today while I'm at work?" "Mrs. Chen said she might teach me how to make soup, and David wants to show me his new puzzle. It has 1,000 pieces." Marcus hugged his daughter. "That sounds fun. Be good for Mrs. Chen, okay?" At work, Marcus couldn't focus. He kept thinking about Blackstone's plan. During his break, he walked through his neighborhood and looked at the buildings. They were old but clean. Families lived here because they couldn't afford anywhere else. Kids played in the small park. Old people sat on benches and talked to their neighbors. This was a real community. People helped each other. Mrs. Chen watched Emma when Marcus worked late. The man at the corner store let people pay later if they didn't have enough money. The woman in apartment 1A brought soup to anyone who was sick. But Blackstone saw none of that. He only saw cheap land that he could buy and expensive condos that he could build. Marcus went back to work for the evening shift. He hoped Blackstone wouldn't come back. But at 8 o'clock, the four men returned to table 12. They looked happy and excited. Marcus brought them drinks and tried to listen to their conversation. The man with glasses, James, seemed less worried than the night before. "I talked to my lawyer today," James said. "He reviewed the environmental reports you gave us. He says everything looks legal." Blackstone smiled. "Of course it does. I told you, I've been doing this for years. I know how to handle all the paperwork." The man with the beard opened a briefcase. "I have the contracts here. If we all sign tonight, we can start the process next week." Marcus felt his heart sink. They were really going to do it. They were going to tear down his neighborhood. The younger man was reading papers carefully. "This says we'll start by buying the apartment building on Maple Street. That's where the old Chinese lady lives, right?" "Right," Blackstone said. "We'll offer her a low price first. If she doesn't take it, we'll find other ways to make her sell." Marcus almost dropped the water pitcher. They were talking about Mrs. Chen. She was the old Chinese lady they wanted to force out of her home. "What if she refuses to sell?" James asked. Blackstone laughed. "Old people like that don't understand business. We'll tell her the building is dangerous. We'll say it needs expensive repairs. We'll make her life difficult until she gives up and sells." Marcus felt anger building inside him. Mrs. Chen was one of the nicest people he knew. She took care of her disabled son and helped other people in the building. She didn't deserve to be treated this way. "What about the environmental concerns?" the younger man asked. "I drove through that area today. It looks like it floods sometimes, and I saw some birds that might be protected species." Blackstone's smile disappeared. "Listen, kid, you're new to this business. Let me explain how it works. We pay people to write reports that say what we want them to say. We pay inspectors to approve our plans. We pay city council members to vote our way. That's how real business works." James looked uncomfortable. "Richard, that sounds like bribery. I don't want to be involved in anything illegal." "It's not bribery," Blackstone said. "It's consulting fees. It's donations to political campaigns. It's perfectly legal if you do it right." Marcus was serving dessert to another table, but he could hear every word. These men were talking about breaking laws and hurting innocent people. They were talking about destroying his community for money. The younger man was still reading the environmental reports. "This report says there's no flooding risk, but I saw watermarks on some of the buildings. It looks like they flood every year." Blackstone took the papers from him. You worry too much. These reports are official. They're signed by certified environmental experts. Nobody's going to question them. But Marcus knew the truth. He had lived in that neighborhood for 3 years. Every spring, when the snow melted and the rain came, the street flooded. Water came up to the sidewalks and sometimes into the first-floor apartments. Everyone who lived there knew about the flooding. The 4 men spent 2 hours at table 12. They signed contracts and shook hands. They talked about making millions of dollars. They talked about starting construction in 6 months. They talked about Marcus's neighborhood like it was just empty land. When they finally asked for the check, Marcus had to make a decision. He could stay quiet and let them destroy his community, or he could try to do something to stop them. Marcus knew that speaking up could cost him his job. These were powerful men who spent a lot of money at the restaurant. If he made them angry, Mr. Peterson would fire him immediately. And without his job, Marcus couldn't pay rent or buy Emma's medicine. But he also knew that staying quiet was wrong. Mrs. Chen and David would lose their home. All the families in the neighborhood would be forced to move, and it would all be based on lies. As Blackstone signed the credit card receipt, James excused himself to go to the bathroom. Marcus saw his chance. He waited a moment, then followed James to the back of the restaurant. "Excuse me, sir," Marcus said quietly. "I couldn't help overhearing your conversation tonight." James looked surprised. "What about it?" Marcus took a deep breath. "I live in the neighborhood you're planning to develop. The environmental reports you have are wrong." James frowned. "What do you mean?" "The area floods every spring. Bad flooding. And there used to be a gas station that leaked chemicals into the ground. Plus there are birds that nest in the trees. Protected birds." James stared at Marcus. "Are you sure about this?" "I'm positive. I've lived there for 3 years. My neighbor has lived there for 15 years. We see the flooding every year. And my daughter and I watch the birds every morning. They're definitely protected species." James was quiet for a moment. "Why are you telling me this?" Marcus felt his heart racing. "Because what you're planning to do is wrong. Those environmental reports are lies. You're going to hurt innocent people based on false information. But the reports are official. They're signed by experts." "Those experts are lying," Marcus said. "I don't know why, but they're not telling the truth about that land." James looked worried again. "This is a big investment for me. If something goes wrong, I could lose everything." "Then you should get a second opinion," Marcus said. "Send your own environmental expert to check the land. Don't just trust Mr. Blackstone's reports." James nodded slowly. "Thank you for telling me this. I need to think about it." Marcus watched James return to the table. He had done what he thought was right. But now he was scared. What if James told Blackstone what Marcus had said? What if Blackstone complained to Mr. Peterson? Marcus finished his shift and went home. He checked on Emma, who was sleeping peacefully. He looked out the window at Mrs. Chen's apartment. Her lights were off too. Marcus had tried to do the right thing. He had tried to protect his community. But he didn't know if it would work. Rich men like Blackstone usually got what they wanted. And waiters like Marcus usually got fired for speaking up. He went to bed wondering if he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. But he also knew that he couldn't have stayed quiet. Some things were more important than keeping a job. Some things were worth fighting for, even if you couldn't win. Emma was one of those things. Mrs. Chen was one of those things. Their community was one of those things. Marcus just hoped that trying to do the right thing wouldn't destroy everything he cared about. Sunday was Marcus's day off, but he couldn't relax. He kept thinking about what he had told James the night before. Maybe he had made a mistake. Maybe he should have stayed quiet and minded his own business. Emma wanted to go to the park, so Marcus took her there. While she played on the swings, he watched the neighborhood around him. Kids were riding bikes, families were having picnics, old people were walking their dogs. It looked like a normal, peaceful community. But Marcus knew it might not last much longer. Blackstone was planning to destroy all of this to make money. "Daddy, push me higher," Emma called from the swing. Marcus pushed her swing and tried to smile. How high do you want to go? To the moon? Emma laughed. Yes, push me to the moon. For a few minutes, Marcus forgot about his worries. He just enjoyed being with his daughter. She was so happy and innocent. She didn't know that rich men were planning to take away their home. On Monday evening, Marcus went to work feeling nervous. He hoped that Blackstone wouldn't come back to the restaurant. Maybe the business deal was done and Marcus would never see him again. But at 7 o'clock, Marcus saw Blackstone's expensive car pull up outside. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Blackstone was back, and he looked angry. Marcus watched through the window as Blackstone talked on his phone outside the restaurant. Blackstone was waving his hands and his face was red. He looked very upset about something. Blackstone came into the restaurant alone this time. Mr. Peterson, the manager, met him at the door with a big smile. Mr. Blackstone, good to see you again. Your usual table? Yes, but I need to talk to you first, Blackstone said. His voice was loud and angry. It's about one of your waiters. Marcus felt his heart start beating fast. He tried to act normal and take care of his other tables, but he kept watching Blackstone and Mr. Peterson. They talked for a few minutes. Mr. Peterson's smile slowly disappeared. He looked shocked and then angry. Both men kept looking toward Marcus. Marcus brought drinks to table 6 and tried to act like nothing was wrong, but his hands were shaking. He knew that James had told Blackstone about their conversation. Mr. Peterson walked over to Marcus. Marcus, I need to see you in my office right now. Marcus followed Mr. Peterson to the small office behind the kitchen. Blackstone came too. Marcus felt like he was walking to his execution. Sit down, Marcus, Mr. Peterson said. His voice was cold and unfriendly. Marcus sat in the chair across from Mr. Peterson's desk. Blackstone stood behind him like a guard. Mr. Blackstone tells me that you interfered with his business meeting on Saturday night, Mr. Peterson said. He says you approached one of his guests and tried to sabotage an important deal. Marcus looked at Blackstone, then back at Mr. Peterson. I just told the truth about my neighborhood. Blackstone exploded. You had no right to stick your nose into my business. You're just a waiter. You don't understand anything about real estate or business. I understand that you're lying about the environmental reports, Marcus said quietly. Blackstone's face turned red. You cost me $2 million. James pulled out of the deal because of what you told him. Do you have any idea how much money that is? Marcus felt a little happy that James had listened to him. At least one of the investors had decided not to support Blackstone's plan. Marcus, is this true? Mr. Peterson asked. Did you talk to Mr. Blackstone's guest about his business? Marcus nodded. Yes, I did, but only because I knew he was being lied to. That's not your job, Mr. Peterson shouted. Your job is to serve food and keep your mouth shut. You don't talk to customers about their private business. But they were planning to destroy my neighborhood based on lies, Marcus said. I couldn't just stay quiet and let that happen. Blackstone pointed his finger at Marcus. You have no proof that anything I said was a lie. Those environmental reports are official and legal. I've lived in that neighborhood for 3 years, Marcus said. I know about the flooding. I know about the contaminated soil. I know about the protected birds. Your reports are wrong. You're a waiter, Blackstone shouted. What do you know about environmental science? What do you know about soil contamination? Nothing. You know nothing. Mr. Peterson held up his hand. That's enough. Marcus, you've worked here for 5 years. You've been a good employee, but what you did was completely unacceptable. Marcus felt his heart sinking. Mr. Peterson, I was just trying to do the right thing. The right thing is to do your job and nothing else, Mr. Peterson said. Mr. Blackstone spends thousands of dollars here every month. He brings other wealthy customers to the restaurant. He's one of our most important clients. And this waiter cost me a major business deal, Blackstone said. I want him fired immediately. And I want to make sure he never works at any decent restaurant in this city again. Marcus felt cold. You can't do that. I have the right to free speech. I can tell people the truth. Blackstone laughed. Free speech? You think you can hide behind free speech after you cost me millions of dollars? I have friends in this city. I know every restaurant owner worth knowing. One phone call from me and you'll never work in the food service industry again. Mr. Peterson looked uncomfortable, but he made his decision. Marcus, I'm sorry, but I have to let you go. Mr. Blackstone is a valued customer and you interfered with his business. That's grounds for immediate termination. But I've worked here for 5 years, Marcus said. I've never been late. I've never had any complaints. I've been a good employee. You were a good employee until Saturday night, Mr. Peterson said. But I can't have waiters who think they can interfere with customers' private business. What you did was wrong and it hurt the restaurant. Marcus stood up slowly. He felt like the room was spinning. What about my final paycheck? What about my tips from this week? You'll get your final paycheck in 2 weeks, minus any uniforms or equipment. You need to return, Mr. Peterson said. As for tonight's tips, you forfeit them due to the circumstances of your termination. Marcus couldn't believe it. Not only was he losing his job, but he was also losing the money he had already earned that week. Blackstone smiled. Let this be a lesson to you. Don't mess with people who have real power. Stick to serving soup and carrying plates. That's all you're good for. Marcus felt angry, but he knew that arguing would only make things worse. He took off his apron and name tag and set them on Mr. Peterson's desk. I'll need my things from my locker, Marcus said. Tony will get them for you, Mr. Peterson said. I think it's best if you leave immediately. Marcus walked through the restaurant one last time. The other waiters stared at him, but nobody said anything. They all knew what had happened, and they were probably scared for their own jobs. Tony brought Marcus his jacket and the few personal items from his locker. I'm sorry, man, Tony whispered. This is really unfair. Marcus nodded and walked out of the restaurant. He sat in his car for a few minutes, trying to understand what had just happened. In 5 minutes, his whole life had changed. He had lost his job, his income, and his way to take care of Emma. As he drove home, Marcus tried to think about what he would do next. He had some money saved, but not much. Maybe enough to pay rent for 1 month and buy groceries for a few weeks. After that, he didn't know what would happen. But even though he was scared and upset, Marcus didn't regret what he had done. He had told the truth. He had tried to protect his community. He had done the right thing, even though it cost him everything. When he got home, Mrs. Chen was waiting for him in the hallway. She looked worried. Marcus, how was work tonight? She asked. Marcus couldn't lie to her. I lost my job, Mrs. Chen. I got fired for trying to help someone. Mrs. Chen put her hand on his arm. Oh no, what will you do now? I don't know yet, Marcus said, but I'll figure something out. I always do. Mrs. Chen nodded. If you need anything, you ask me. We are neighbors, we help each other. Marcus thanked her and went into his apartment. Emma was asleep, but he checked on her anyway. Tomorrow he would have to start looking for a new job. Tomorrow he would have to figure out how to survive without income. But tonight, he just sat in his living room and thought about what he had lost and what he had gained. He had lost his job and his financial security. But he had gained something too. He had proven to himself that he could stand up for what was right. Even when it was dangerous, that had to count for something. It had to. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus lost his job. 3 weeks of looking for work every day. 3 weeks of watching his small savings disappear. 3 weeks of worry that kept him awake at night. Marcus had applied to every restaurant in the city. He had walked into hotels, cafes, and even fast food places. But everywhere he went, the answer was the same. We'll call you if something opens up. But the calls never came. At first, Marcus thought it was just bad luck. The economy was tough, and lots of people were looking for work. But after 2 weeks of rejections, he started to suspect something else was happening. One day, he overheard a conversation between 2 managers at a fancy steakhouse downtown. They were talking about him. Yeah, that's the guy, one manager said. Blackstone called and said he caused problems at Romano's, said he interferes with customers and can't be trusted. The other manager shook his head. Too bad. His resume looks good. 5 years at Romano's is impressive. But if Blackstone says, he's trouble, we can't risk it. Marcus felt sick. Blackstone was keeping his promise. He was making sure Marcus couldn't get a job at any decent restaurant in the city. Marcus tried applying to cheaper places, diners and family restaurants where Blackstone probably didn't have influence, but those jobs paid much less money. A diner might pay him $8 an hour plus small tips. At Romano's, he had made $15 an hour plus good tips. The difference was huge. Emma didn't know how bad things were. Marcus tried to act normal around her. He still made her breakfast every morning and helped her with homework every night. But inside, he was falling apart. The rent was due in 1 week, and Marcus didn't have enough money to pay it. He had already sold his television and his computer. He had pawned his watch and his wedding ring from his marriage to Sarah. He had asked his landlord for an extension, but the landlord said he could only wait 1 more week. Emma's inhaler was almost empty, and Marcus couldn't afford to refill the prescription. The medicine cost $80, and Marcus only had $35 left in his bank account. Marcus tried to get help from the government, but the process was slow and complicated. He filled out forms for unemployment benefits, but they said it would take 4 to 6 weeks to get approved. He applied for food assistance, but the waiting list was long. He asked about help with medical expenses, but Emma's asthma wasn't considered serious enough for emergency aid. Every day, Marcus walked through the neighborhood looking for help wanted signs. He checked grocery stores, gas stations, and small shops. A few places were hiring, but they wanted people who could work during the day. Marcus needed to be available to take Emma to school and pick her up in the afternoon. Mrs. Chen noticed that Marcus was home more often. She asked if everything was okay, and Marcus told her he was between jobs. He didn't want to worry her with the truth about how desperate things were getting. "Maybe you could work at my nephew's restaurant," Mrs. Chen suggested. "It's in Chinatown. The pay is not great, but it's honest work." Marcus thanked her and went to Chinatown to talk to her nephew. The nephew, named Jimmy, was friendly and seemed willing to hire Marcus. But the restaurant was small and could only afford to pay $6 an hour. Even working full-time, that wouldn't be enough to pay rent and buy Emma's medicine. "I'm sorry," Jimmy said. "I wish I could pay more, but business is slow. Maybe in a few months if things get better." Marcus understood. Everyone was struggling, not just him. That night, Marcus sat at his kitchen table with all his bills spread out in front of him. Rent, $800. Emma's medicine, $80. Groceries, about $60 a week. Car insurance, $90. Electricity, $45. Phone, $35. Even if he got the job at Jimmy's restaurant, he would make about $960 a month. His expenses were over $1,300 a month. He would fall further behind every week. Marcus looked at Emma's drawing on the refrigerator. It showed the two of them holding hands under a rainbow. At the bottom, she had written, "Daddy and me forever" in red crayon. How could he take care of her if he couldn't even pay the rent? What would happen if they became homeless? What would happen if Emma had an asthma attack and he couldn't afford her medicine? The next morning, Emma noticed that her father looked sad. "Daddy, are you sick?" she asked as she ate her cereal. "No, sweetheart, I'm not sick, just a little tired." Emma studied his face. "Mrs. Chen says you're looking for a new job. I hope you find a really good one that pays lots of money." Marcus smiled, despite his worries. "Me too, baby. Me too." After Emma left for school, Marcus continued his job search. He went to a McDonald's near the highway. The manager was willing to hire him immediately. The pay was $7.50 an hour, and Marcus could work evening shifts after Emma got home from school. Mendero. Wasn't enough money, but it was something. Marcus took the job and started that same night. Working at McDonald's was very different from working at Romano's. Instead of serving expensive meals to wealthy customers, Marcus was making hamburgers and French fries for families and teenagers. The work was fast and stressful, but at least it was a job. His first paycheck was for $120. After taxes, he got $96. It was better than nothing, but nowhere near enough to solve his problems. Marcus started looking for a second job. Maybe he could work at McDonald's in the evening and somewhere else during the day while Emma was at school. He found a job cleaning office buildings early in the morning. The pay was $8 an hour, and he could work from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. before Emma woke up. It meant getting only 4 hours of sleep each night, but Marcus was desperate. With both jobs, Marcus was making about $300 a week. It still wasn't enough to pay all his bills, but it was closer. The problem was that working 2 jobs meant Marcus was never home. He left for his cleaning job at 4:30 in the morning. He came home at 9:15 to wake Emma up and make her breakfast. Then he slept for a few hours while she was at school. He picked her up at 3:30, spent an hour with her, and then left for McDonald's at 5. Emma started spending even more time with Mrs. Chen. The old woman was happy to help, but Marcus felt guilty about depending on her so much. "Don't worry about it," Mrs. Chen said. "Emma is a good girl. She helps me cook and keeps David company. It's good for all of us." But Marcus could see that Emma missed spending time with him. She would draw pictures of them together and leave them on his pillow. She would stay awake, late, hoping he would come home early from work. One night, Marcus came home from McDonald's to find Emma crying in her bed. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" he asked, sitting down next to her. "I miss you, Daddy," she said through her tears. "You're always working now. We never have time to play or watch movies together." Marcus felt his heart breaking. "I know, baby. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to make enough money to take care of us. Can't you find a different job? One where you don't have to work so much?" Marcus wished he could explain everything to her. He wished he could tell her about Blackstone and why he couldn't get a good job anymore. But she was only 8 years old. She didn't need to know about all the adult problems. "I'm trying to find a better job," he said. "But for now, this is what we have to do. Can you be patient with Daddy?" Emma nodded and hugged him tight. "I love you, Daddy. Even when you're not here, I love you." That night, Marcus made a decision. He couldn't keep living like this. Working 2 jobs that barely paid enough to survive wasn't really living. Emma needed a father, not just someone who paid the bills. He had one more idea. It was risky, but he was running out of options. He decided to call the local newspaper and tell them about Blackstone's plan to tear down the neighborhood based on false environmental reports. Maybe if the story became public, other people would help stop Blackstone. Maybe someone with more power than Marcus could fight back. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was the only plan Marcus had left. Tomorrow, he would call the newspaper and tell them everything he knew. Tonight, he would spend a few precious minutes with his daughter before she fell asleep. As he tucked Emma into bed, she handed him a new drawing. This one showed him wearing a superhero cape. "That's you, Daddy," she said. "You're my superhero, because you work so hard to take care of me." Marcus smiled and kissed her forehead. "You're my superhero too, Emma. You make me want to be the best daddy I can be." After she fell asleep, Marcus looked at the drawing for a long time. Maybe he wasn't a superhero, but he was still Emma's father. And as long as he was her father, he would never give up fighting for their future. Tuesday morning started like every other morning for the past 3 weeks. Marcus's alarm went off at 4:15. He got dressed quietly and left for his cleaning job at the office building downtown. Emma was still sleeping peacefully in her bed at the office building was empty and quiet at 5 in the morning. Marcus cleaned floors, emptied trash cans, and wiped down desks. The work was boring, but it gave him time to think. Today, he planned to call the newspaper and tell them about Blackstone's plan. Marcus finished cleaning at 9 and drove home. Emma would be waking up soon, and he needed to make her breakfast before school. As he turned onto his street, he noticed something strange. A shiny silver car was parked outside his apartment building. It was the most expensive car Marcus had ever seen. It looked like something a movie star would drive. Marcus wondered who it belonged to. Nobody in his neighborhood could afford a car like that. Marcus parked his old Honda and walked toward the building. The expensive car had a man sitting in the driver's seat. The man was wearing a black suit and sunglasses. He looked like a bodyguard or a Secret Service agent. As Marcus reached the front door of his building, the back door of the expensive car opened. A man in his 60s stepped out. He was tall and thin, with gray hair and an expensive suit. He looked like a businessman, but not the mean kind like Blackstone. This man seemed kind and friendly. "Excuse me," the man said. "Are you Marcus Williams?" Marcus felt nervous. Who was this man? How did he know Marcus's name? "Yes, I'm Marcus. Who are you?" The man smiled. "My name is Jonathan Sterling. I'm the CEO of Sterling Industries. I was wondering if we could talk for a few minutes. Marcus had heard of Sterling Industries. It was one of the biggest companies in the country. They built office buildings and shopping centers all over the world. But why would the CEO want to talk to him? I'm sorry, Mr. Sterling, but I need to get my daughter ready for school, Marcus said. Maybe we could talk later? Of course, Sterling said. Would it be okay if I came up to your apartment? I promise this won't take long, and what I have to say is very important. Marcus didn't know what to do. He didn't want to be rude to such an important person, but he was also suspicious. Why would a rich CEO want to talk to an unemployed waiter? Okay, Marcus said finally, but just for a few minutes. They walked up to Marcus's apartment on the second floor. Marcus unlocked the door and let Sterling inside. The apartment looked very small and shabby compared to what Sterling was probably used to. I'm sorry about the mess, Marcus said. We don't usually have visitors this early. Don't apologize, Sterling said, looking around the apartment. This is a lovely home. You can tell that people who care about each other live here. Marcus heard Emma moving around in her bedroom. She would be awake soon and need breakfast. Mr. Sterling, what did you want to talk about? Marcus asked. Sterling sat down on the old couch. I was one of the investors at that dinner you served at Romano's 3 weeks ago. I was sitting with Richard Blackstone when you spoke to James Harrison in the hallway. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Oh no. Are you here to sue me or something? I was just trying to tell the truth. Sterling held up his hand. No, nothing like that. I'm here to thank you. Thank me? Marcus was confused. Yes. What you told James that night saved me from making a terrible mistake. After James told us what you said, I decided to investigate Blackstone's environmental reports more carefully. Sterling reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. I hired my own environmental experts to test the land in your neighborhood. You were absolutely right. The soil is contaminated with chemicals from that old gas station. The area floods badly every spring, and there are protected birds that nest in the trees. Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. So Blackstone was lying? Completely lying. His environmental reports were fake. The experts who signed them were paid to lie. If I had invested with Blackstone, I would have lost millions of dollars and probably faced criminal charges for environmental crimes. Emma's bedroom door opened and she came out in her pajamas. She stopped when she saw Sterling sitting on their couch. Daddy, who is this man? She asked. Marcus put his arm around Emma. This is Mr. Sterling, sweetheart. He's a businessman who wanted to talk to Daddy. Sterling smiled at Emma. You must be Emma. Your father has told me what a wonderful daughter you are. Emma looked confused. When did Daddy tell you about me? Sterling laughed. Actually, he didn't. But I can tell just by looking around your home how much he loves you. Marcus was still trying to understand why Sterling was there. Mr. Sterling, I'm glad I could help you avoid a bad investment, but I'm not sure why you came here to tell me that. Because what you did took incredible courage, Sterling said. You risked your job to tell the truth to a complete stranger. You knew you might get in trouble, but you did it anyway because it was the right thing to do. Emma went to the kitchen to get a glass of water. While she was gone, Sterling continued talking. I know that Blackstone got you fired, he said quietly. I know that he's been calling other restaurants to make sure you can't get hired anywhere. Decent. What he did to you is wrong and probably illegal. Marcus felt embarrassed that this important man knew about his problems. I'll find another job eventually. I'm working at McDonald's now, and I have a cleaning job too. Sterling looked sad. Marcus, you shouldn't have to work 2 minimum wage jobs because you did the right thing. That's not fair, and it's not the kind of world I want to live in. Emma came back from the kitchen. Daddy, I need to get ready for school. Go ahead and get dressed, sweetheart, Marcus said. I'll make your breakfast in a minute. After Emma went back to her room, Sterling stood up. Marcus, I have a business proposal for you. But first, I want you to know something about me. Sterling walked over to the window and looked out at the neighborhood. I grew up in a place just like this. My father worked 2 jobs to support our family. My mother cleaned houses to make extra money. I know what it's like to struggle. He turned back to Marcus. When I was 12 years old, my little sister had asthma, just like Emma. One night she had a really bad attack, but we couldn't afford to take her to the hospital. A neighbor, an old woman who barely had any money herself, paid for the ambulance. And the hospital visit? She saved my sister's life. Marcus listened carefully to Sterling's story. That woman taught me that helping each other is the most important thing people can do. She didn't help us because she expected something back. She helped us because it was right. Sterling reached into his briefcase again. That's why I'm here, Marcus. You helped me when you didn't have to. You told the truth when it was dangerous. Now I want to help you. What kind of help? Marcus asked. I want to offer you a job, Sterling said. A real job, with good pay and benefits. A job where you can use your conscience and your courage to make a difference. Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. What kind of job? Community liaison for Sterling Industries. Your job would be to make sure that all of our development projects really help the communities where we build. You would investigate environmental concerns, talk to local residents, and make sure we're always telling the truth. Emma came out of her room dressed for school. Daddy, can you make pancakes? In just a minute, sweetheart, Marcus said. His mind was racing. Was this really happening? Sterling smiled at Emma, then looked back at Marcus. The job pays $75,000 a year, plus full health insurance for you and Emma. There's also a signing bonus to help you get back on your feet. Marcus felt dizzy. $75,000 was more money than he had ever made in his life. With health insurance, Emma's medicine would be covered. Mr. Sterling, this is very generous, but why would you do this for me? You don't even know me. I know the most important thing about you, Sterling said. I know that you'll do the right thing even when it's hard. That's exactly the kind of person I need working for me. Emma tugged on Marcus's shirt. Daddy, I'm hungry. Go ahead and make her breakfast, Sterling said. I'll wait. As Marcus made pancakes for Emma, his hands were shaking with excitement and disbelief. Could this really be happening? After weeks of desperation and worry, was his life about to change completely? Sterling sat at the kitchen table with Emma while she ate her pancakes. He asked her about school and her favorite subjects. Emma told him about her drawings and her friend David next door. Mr. Sterling, Emma said, are you going to give my daddy a new job? Sterling looked at Marcus, then back at Emma. Only if your daddy wants the job. It would be a very important job helping people in neighborhoods like this one. Emma clapped her hands. Daddy should take it. Then he won't have to work at McDonald's anymore and we can spend more time together. Marcus realized that his daughter understood more about their situation than he had thought. She knew he was struggling. She knew he was working too much, and she knew this was their chance for something better. What do you think, Daddy? Emma asked. Should you take the job? Marcus looked at his daughter's hopeful face, then at Sterling's kind smile. For the first time in weeks, he felt like everything might be okay. Yes, Marcus said. Yes, I think I should take the job. After Emma left for school, Sterling and Marcus sat down at the kitchen table to talk more about the job offer. Marcus still couldn't believe this was really happening. Mr. Sterling, I have to ask you something, Marcus said. This all seems too good to be true. Are you sure you want to hire me? I'm just a waiter with no college degree. I don't know anything about business or environmental science. Sterling smiled. Marcus, let me tell you the rest of the story. What you did that night at Romano's was much more important than you realize. Sterling opened his briefcase and pulled out several thick folders. After James told us what you said, I decided to investigate Blackstone's entire operation. What we found was shocking. He spread the papers across Marcus's small kitchen table. Blackstone has been running fraudulent development schemes for years. He bribes environmental inspectors to write false reports. He pays off city council members to approve his projects. He threatens people who try to stop him. Marcus looked at the papers. There were official documents, photographs, and what looked like financial records. This neighborhood where you live was just one of 12 projects Blackstone was planning. Sterling continued. He was going to tear down low-income housing all over the city and build luxury developments, all based on fake environmental reports. Sterling pointed to a photograph of another neighborhood. He already destroyed this area last year. 60 families lost their homes. An old man died of a heart attack when Blackstone's men came to evict him. The new condos are built on contaminated soil, but the people who bought them don't know it. Yet. Marcus felt sick. How can he get away with this? Money and power, Sterling said sadly. Blackstone has been doing this for 20 years. He makes millions of dollars and he pays off anyone who might stop him. Until now, nobody has been brave enough to speak up against him. Sterling pulled out another folder. But your courage changed everything. When James pulled out of the investment, Blackstone got desperate. He started making mistakes. He tried to bribe a federal environmental inspector, but the inspector was honest and reported it to the FBI. Marcus's eyes widened. The FBI? Yes. They've been investigating Blackstone for 6 months now. They have evidence of fraud, bribery, environmental crimes, and money laundering. Blackstone was arrested last week. Marcus couldn't believe it. He was arrested? He's in jail right now, waiting for trial. The judge denied bail because Blackstone was planning to flee the country. They found plane tickets to Switzerland and millions of dollars in offshore bank accounts. Sterling showed Marcus a newspaper article. The headline read, "Real estate mogul arrested in massive fraud scheme." Blackstone's angry face stared out from the front page. But the best part, Sterling said, is that the FBI wants to talk to you. You're the hero who started this whole investigation. Marcus shook his head. I'm not a hero. I just told the truth. Sometimes, telling the truth is the most heroic thing you can do, Sterling said. Because of you, Blackstone can't hurt any more families. Because of you, those fake environmental reports will never be used again. Because of you, 12 neighborhoods full of poor families get to keep their homes. Sterling pulled out one more document. And this is the most important part. The city council voted yesterday to designate this entire area as a protected historic district. Nobody can tear down these buildings now. Mrs. Chen and her son David are safe. Your family is safe. Everyone in this neighborhood is safe. Marcus felt tears in his eyes. For weeks, he had worried that he had made a terrible mistake. He had lost his job and almost lost his home because he decided to speak up. But now he learned that his decision had saved an entire community. There's something else you should know, Sterling said gently. The reason I care so much about this case is personal. Sterling reached into his wallet and pulled out an old photograph. It showed a young girl with an inhaler sitting on a hospital bed. This is my daughter, Sarah. She had severe asthma when she was Emma's age. One night she had a terrible attack. We rushed her to the hospital, but they said her lungs were damaged by air pollution from a chemical plant near our home. Sterling's voice became quiet and sad. The chemical plant was built illegally on contaminated land. The environmental report said the land was safe, but they were lies, just like Blackstone's reports. Marcus looked at the photograph. The little girl looked a lot like Emma. Sarah survived, but her lungs were never the same. She couldn't run or play sports like other children. She had to use an inhaler every day for the rest of her life. Sterling put the photograph back in his wallet. Sarah died 5 years ago from lung cancer. The doctors said it was probably caused by the pollution she breathed as a child. She was only 32 years old. Marcus felt terrible for Sterling. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Sterling said. Sarah's death taught me that environmental crimes aren't just about money or business. They're about real people's lives. They're about children like Emma who might get sick because of someone else's greed. Sterling looked directly at Marcus. When James told me what you said that night, I thought about Sarah. I thought about how different her life might have been if someone had spoken up to protect her when she was Emma's age. Marcus understood now why Sterling was being so generous. You're offering me this job because of your daughter. Partly, yes, but also because you have something very rare in the business world. You have integrity. You care more about doing the right thing than about making money or keeping your job safe. Sterling stood up and walked to the window. Marcus, Sterling Industries builds projects all over the country. We employ thousands of people and make billions of dollars. But sometimes in the business world, it's easy to forget about the real People who are affected by what we do. He turned back to Marcus. I need someone like you to remind me and my company about what's really important. I need someone who will always tell the truth even when it's uncomfortable. I need someone who will fight for families like yours. Marcus thought about everything Sterling had told him. What exactly would I do in this job? You would visit every community where we're planning to build something. You would talk to the people who live there. You would make sure our environmental reports are honest and accurate. You would be the voice of regular families in our company's decisions. Sterling sat back down at the table. Most importantly, you would have the power to stop any project that might hurt people. If you say a project is wrong, we won't do it, no matter how much money we might lose. Marcus was amazed. You would give me that much power? Yes, because I trust you. You've already proven that you'll do the right thing, even when it costs you everything. That's exactly the kind of person I need making these decisions. Sterling reached into his briefcase one last time. I brought the employment contract with me. The salary is $75,000 a year. Full health insurance for you and Emma. 3 weeks of vacation. And a $20,000 signing bonus to help you get back on your feet. Marcus looked at the contract. The numbers seemed impossible. More money than he had ever dreamed of making. There's one more thing, Sterling said. The job comes with a company car and a travel budget. You'll be visiting communities all over the country. Sometimes Emma could come with you during school breaks. You could show her different parts of America. Marcus thought about Emma and how excited she would be to travel and see new places. She had never been outside their city. Mr. Sterling, this is the most generous offer anyone has ever made to me. But I have to ask, what if I make mistakes? What if I'm not smart enough for this job? Sterling smiled. Marcus, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be honest and caring. Those are the most important qualifications for this job. Sterling stood up to leave. I don't need an answer right now. Take some time to think about it. Talk to Emma. Talk to Mrs. Chen. This is a big decision that will change your whole life. Marcus walked Sterling to the door. Mr. Sterling, can I ask you one more question? Of course. Why didn't you just send someone from your company to make this offer? Why did you come yourself? Sterling paused at the door. Because what you did reminded me why I started my company in the first place. I wanted to build things that make people's lives better, not worse. You helped me remember that mission. Sterling shook Marcus's hand. I hope you'll take the job, Marcus. But even if you don't, I want you to know that you're a good man. Emma is lucky to have you as her father. After Sterling left, Marcus sat alone in his apartment for a long time. He looked at the contract on his kitchen table. He looked at Emma's drawings on the refrigerator. He thought about Mrs. Chen and David next door, safe in their home because of what he had done. For the first time in months, Marcus felt truly happy, not just because of the job offer, but because he had learned something important about himself. He had learned that he was brave enough to do the right thing, even when it was scary. And now that courage was about to change his and Emma's life forever. Marcus spent the rest of the morning thinking about Sterling's offer. He read the contract 3 times to make sure he understood everything. The numbers still seemed too good to be true, but Sterling had seemed completely honest and sincere. When Emma came home from school, Marcus was waiting for her with a snack and a big smile. Daddy, you look happy today, Emma said as she ate her apple slices. Did something good happen? Marcus sat down next to her at the kitchen table. Something very good happened, sweetheart. Remember Mr. Sterling, the man who was here this morning? The nice man in the fancy suit? Yes, he offered Daddy a new job. A really good job that pays lots of money and has health insurance so your medicine won't cost anything anymore. Emma's eyes got wide. Really? That's amazing. What kind of job is it? Marcus tried to explain it in a way an 8-year-old would understand. I would help make sure that when his company builds new buildings, they don't hurt the neighborhoods where people live. I would make sure families like ours are safe and happy. That sounds like a really important job, Emma said. Will you take it? I think so. But it might mean some changes for us. Good changes, but still changes. We might be able to move to a bigger apartment. You might be able to go to a better school. And we might travel sometimes to visit different places. Emma clapped her hands. I would love to travel. Can we see the ocean? Marcus laughed. Maybe we can see the ocean. That evening, Marcus went next door to talk to Mrs. Chen. He found her in the kitchen making dumplings with David. David was carefully folding the dough just like his mother had taught him. Hello, Marcus, Mrs. Chen said. You look different today. Happier. Marcus told Mrs. Chen about Sterling's visit and the job offer. Mrs. Chen listened carefully, nodding as he spoke. This is wonderful news, she said when he finished. But you look worried about something. What is bothering you? Marcus sighed. Mrs. Chen, you've been so good to Emma and me. You've watched Emma when I had to work late. You never asked for much money. You've been like family to us. You are family, Mrs. Chen said simply. What's your worry? If I take this job, Emma and I might move to a nicer neighborhood. We might not live next door to you anymore. I don't want Emma to lose the only grandmother she's ever known. Mrs. Chen smiled and patted Marcus's hand. Marcus, family isn't about living in the same building. Family is about caring for each other no matter where you are. Emma will always be my granddaughter even if she lives far away. David looked up from his dumplings. Emma can visit us on weekends, and we can visit her in her new house. Mrs. Chen nodded. David is right. Good relationships don't end because people move. They just change. Besides, Mrs. Chen continued, this neighborhood is safe now because of what you did. We don't have to worry about being forced to move anymore. Now, you can choose to move to something better. That night, after Emma was asleep, Marcus called Sterling's office and left a message saying he wanted to accept the job offer. Sterling called him back the next morning. Marcus, I'm so glad you decided to take the job. When can you start? Whenever you need me to, Marcus said. I just need to give notice at my other jobs. Don't worry about that. I'll take care of everything. My assistant will call McDonald's and the cleaning company today. You'll get paid for 2 weeks even though you're not working there anymore. Sterling's kindness continued to amaze Marcus. What should I do now? First, go to the bank and deposit this signing bonus check. Then take Emma shopping for some new clothes. And maybe look at some apartments in better neighborhoods. You deserve to live somewhere nice. 2 days later, Marcus got a call from the FBI. Agent Sarah Rodriguez wanted to interview him about Blackstone's crimes. Marcus met her at the FBI office downtown. Mr. Williams, what you did took incredible courage, Agent Rodriguez said. Your testimony will help us put Blackstone in prison for a very long time. She showed Marcus evidence of all the crimes Blackstone had committed. Fake environmental reports, bribed officials, families forced from their homes, millions of dollars stolen. How many years in prison will he get? Marcus asked. Probably 20 to 30 years. He's also going to have to pay back all the money he stole, plus fines. He'll never be able to hurt anyone again. Agent Rodriguez smiled. Oh, and there's something else. The city is giving you an award for civic courage. The mayor wants to honor you at a ceremony next month. Marcus felt embarrassed. I don't need an award. I just did what felt right. That's exactly why you deserve the award, Agent Rodriguez said. The next few weeks passed quickly. Marcus started his new job at Sterling Industries. His first assignment was to visit a small town in Ohio where the company was planning to build a shopping center. Marcus spent 3 days talking to local families, visiting the proposed building site, and reviewing environmental reports. He found some problems with the drainage system that could cause flooding, and he recommended changes to protect the local creek. Sterling approved all of Marcus's suggestions even though they made the project more expensive. This is exactly what we hired you for, Sterling told him. Good work. Marcus and Emma moved to a bigger apartment in a safer neighborhood. Emma got enrolled in a better school with smaller classes and more resources. For the first time in her life, Emma had her own bedroom with space for all her drawings and books. But they didn't forget their old friends. Every Saturday, Marcus and Emma visited Mrs. Chen and David. They brought groceries and helped with cleaning. Emma taught David new games, and Mrs. Chen taught Emma more Chinese cooking. "We're still family," Mrs. Chen always said. "Distance doesn't change love." 1 month after starting his new job, Marcus attended the Civic Courage ceremony at City Hall. The mayor presented him with a medal and a certificate in front of a room full of people. Emma sat in the front row, wearing her best dress and beaming with pride. "Marcus Williams represents the best of our city," the mayor said. "He risked everything to protect his community and expose corruption. Because of his courage, hundreds of families get to keep their homes, and a dangerous criminal is behind bars." The audience applauded as Marcus accepted the award. He felt nervous speaking in front of so many people, but he wanted to say something important. "I'm not a hero," Marcus said into the microphone. "I'm just a father who wanted to protect his daughter and his neighbors. Anyone in this room would have done the same thing if they saw people being hurt by lies." He looked at Emma in the audience. "I want my daughter to grow up in a world where people stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. I want her to know that one person speaking the truth can make a difference." After the ceremony, many people came up to Marcus to thank him and shake his hand. Some were families from his old neighborhood who no longer had to worry about losing their homes. Others were reporters who wanted to write stories about his courage, but the person Marcus was happiest to see was James Harrison, the investor who had pulled out of Blackstone's deal after Marcus warned him. "I wanted to thank you personally," James said. "You saved me from making a terrible mistake. I could have lost everything and faced criminal charges. Instead, I invested that money in affordable housing projects that actually help people." James handed Marcus a business card. "If you ever want to start your own company helping communities fight bad developers, call me. I'd be happy to invest in something like that." Marcus thanked James but said he was happy with his new job at Sterling Industries. He was learning so much and felt like he was making a real difference. 6 months later, Marcus's life had completely changed. He loved his new job and was good at it. He had helped stop 3 projects that would have hurt communities and improved 5 others to make them better for local families. Emma was thriving in her new school. Her asthma was well controlled with the good health insurance, and she had made lots of new friends. She still drew pictures, but now they showed her and Marcus visiting different cities for his work. One evening, as Marcus was helping Emma with her homework, she asked him a question that made him think. "Daddy, do you ever miss working at the restaurant?" Marcus considered the question. "I miss some of the people I worked with, and I liked making customers happy with good service. But I don't miss worrying about money all the time or working so many hours that we couldn't spend time together. Are you glad you told that man the truth even though you got fired?" Marcus smiled and hugged his daughter. "Yes, sweetheart, I'm very glad. Sometimes doing the right thing is scary and hard, but it's always worth it in the end. Will you teach me to always tell the truth even when it's hard?" "I'll try my best," Marcus said. "But I think you already know how to do that. You're a very good person, Emma." That night, after Emma was asleep, Marcus sat on his balcony looking out at the city lights. He thought about how much his life had changed in just a few months. From struggling to pay rent and buy medicine to having a good job and a bright future. But the most important thing hadn't changed. Emma was still the center of his world. She was still the reason he got up every morning and tried to be a better person. The difference was that now he could give her the life she deserved without working himself to death. Marcus also thought about the lesson he had learned. Standing up for what's right isn't always easy, and it doesn't always work out well, immediately.